And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion about Star Trek. And today we're back to our long-running Star Trek: The Next Generation discussions. And today we're on season 4, episode 17.
Yes.
Night Terrors.
Yeah.
Working with you has made me so much more pro than I was. Like I never I never said season this or that. It was just it was a lot more casual and informal. No, I'm just teasing. We're still the same.
We're still, you haven't gone mainstream yet. It's all right.
No. I have a lot of I would be very, very surprised if this format ever gets mainstream, but if it does, I kind of would like see that as like hope for attention spans or just, or the populace has gone more insane and now they're enjoying things like Starfleet Boy. In a dream deprived world, Starfleet Boy is king.
Nice.
Do you want to do the summary or shall I?
I can if you don't want to. Notice how I take the easy episodes?
I do. I like that. I'm going to hand this one to you. You do all the episodes. You've done a hard one. But yeah, I'm going to hand this one to you because I kind of want to see what your take on it is, because I think the summary is a good preview of one's mood.
Okay. So I didn't see the episode. I fell asleep. No, just kidding. No, so essentially the USS Enterprise is out to investigate what happened to the USS Britain.
A Miranda class starship.
A Miranda class starship, which is a heavily featured class starship in Star Trek. So they figure out that when they get there, the ship is kind of adrift, and they beam over, see what's going on, and everyone's dead. They seem to be all murdered, or they've committed suicide, or some sort of dreadful whatever's going on. And simultaneously, Counselor Troi starts getting nightmares, and that's pretty much how it all sets up. So they find one survivor on the ship, which also is Betazoid. And so they have him in sickbay. They bring him back to sickbay, and Deanna Troi is trying to communicate with him telepathically or empathically. I don't know. Telepathically, I would think.
I guess telepathically, yeah.
Because there's words coming out there, and she's trying to figure out what's going on. And so very quickly they figure out what the kind of scientific problem is with the situation that they're in, which is essentially they're in some sort of pocket of space that sucks up all of the energy from the ship. And so that leaves them adrift, and they have no power to leave or to communicate.
The Taikan Rift.
Yes, the Taikan's Rift.
Taikan's Rift, yeah.
Discovered by some beta Taikan, apparently.
Or no, what was he? I wrote it down. It's a Melkorian or something like that.
Yeah, a race that has never been featured on Star Trek.
A Malthusian. You can make up what Malthusians look like, and it won't make a difference because there's no. we're gonna have a Malthusian portion to the show today. I nominate this as a segment.
And then so they figure out that there's a second problem going on because all of the other reported kind of issues didn't feature crews murdering each other and just chaos happening. And so they figure out that there's simultaneously how should I say this? What is it? Is it like an anomaly?
Yeah, I wasn't too clear on that part.
Okay.
I wasn't too sure if I wasn't too sure if the ship that was stuck on the other side was causing everyone to go crazy because they were sending out the psychic signal to Troi, or if there was something else. But it seems like it stopped once the the Enterprise was free. So
Okay,
I don't.
we'll go with that. We'll go with that.
Okay, okay.
So the Spatial Anomaly essentially, we'll go with this, has trapped the USS Enterprise on one side, well, and the Britannia before, but it's also trapped another ship on the other side, or some sort of other ship, and they're sending out like telepathic or empathic waves, trying to communicate with someone that has telepathic powers. So they're in luck. We have so Deanna Troi on board, and so what they're doing is they're communicating in her dreams, but that's taking away the ability to dream from every other person on the ship.
Right, and that's Klingons, humans, whatever. It's only beta
Every
Zeds.
other species. It's only beta
only...
Zeds, betazoids,
betazoids, beta Zans.
Beta Zans. I'm so sorry, dear listeners. I always get beta Z and betazoid mixed up. I forget which one is the planet and which one. Okay. So Deanna Troi, is I'm going to assume she's the only empathic or telepathic person on the ship. So she's the only one unaffected by the loss of REM sleep.
Right.
And so these aliens are sending out a message like, you have to send out a certain particle that we're going to detonate, and that's going to free us both from this anomaly.
Right.
And so that's pretty much how it plays out. I think they end up abandoning the USS Britannia where it is.
Yeah, we don't we don't know what happens to the Britannia.
We could assume it was destroyed in the explosion.
That's true. That's true.
But then we see the USS Enterprise go off on one side, and then the alien spaceship go on the other.
And a rather interesting looking ship. I want to talk about that thing too. Yeah,
blue glowing design.
It looked like a piece of Superman's ice cavern flying through space. Like it was like
Fortress of Solitude.
The Fortress of Solitude. It looked like something like that.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the story, and it's all done in a very kind of worrying, anxiety filled
creepy
ambiance.
Kind of ambiance. Yeah, it's true. What was it? Eyes in the dark, one moon, circles.
Yeah, that's it.
See, where are you? It's going to take me all of 2 minutes to just tell you to do this. It was really funny. I don't know. I thought the failure of this show was definitely of this episode was definitely in the they might have overreached with their special effects capabilities to tell the story in the dream. I know it was a dream sequence, so we can be forgiving about it, but I was just like, I did not enjoy that shot of, she didn't look like she was floating. Yeah. She just looked like she was laying on a chair. We were like
generally speaking, I don't enjoy dream sequences or I mean even the current Discovery sequences where like Burnham's talking to Sarek in the Katra.
Right.
All of those abstract kind of things I'm not too fond of, because I don't really like having just one person. Even Tapestry, you have that's TNG as well. You have Captain Picard talking to Q in just like a white background. I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff. But this dream sequence was terrible in the sense that she didn't look like she was flying at all. And the CG is just like a hideous cloud vortex with like a green screen slapped on
everything was green. At least it was green, it wasn't blue. But
oh no, fair enough. But I mean it wasn't the most. I mean, the funny thing is it was ugly, but it wasn't even that necessary. I feel like they didn't need to spend that much time on those dream sequences.
Right.
I get it. It was creepy. She was trying to understand what was going on, but I don't think that was the more interesting focus.
Right. No, I agree. And you know, it's funny. I've seen this episode probably 3 or 4 times before in my life, like whether it was like the original time I saw it or on
that much.
Or subsequent re-airing on television. And I always forget this episode until the Dr. Crusher sequence. I'm always like, I've never seen this episode before until the Dr. Crusher sequence in the morgue where the dead people sit up. That is about the only memorable scene, and I remember they even used it a lot in like commercials and marketing for Star Trek. They would often reference that scene because it was actually very nicely executed. I think it survives as a creepy moment to this day from Star Trek's. Obviously, for my personal memory, it does, but
Well, I don't know how it is on your Netflix, but on my Netflix, that is the shot that they use to promote the episode. So when you're on
when
Netflix,
they
you
give
have
a
like
little,
all of the episodes, and you have just one shot of the episode to kind of give you an idea of what's going on. Often they're very spoiler heavy.
yeah,
Um, this one isn't, but it is Beverly Crusher kind of backing up with the cadavers
all yeah.
all sitting up. It is a very it's a very well executed shot. It's got that tension to it, which is
It
it's
does.
nice. I like it. I like that.
Gary did not choose that shot for the graphic.
Oh my god.
I was curious if he
Did he choose
had. So
did he choose Deanna Troy?
he did. He totally did.
Okay, fair enough. Because it is a Deanna
Yeah,
Troy
because
episode,
it's her episode. It's true.
and
It
it's
would.
kind of unfair to take away from her
Yeah, it's
because of
true.
that one scene
Um,
with Crusher.
we have a couple. I mean, she was really
Yeah.
good at like acting dream deprived. Like, it was like, um, are the I guess I just have a bunch of questions and they're not necessarily directed at you. They're just but if you have
Okay.
answers or want to theorize about some of these things, that would be great. Um, Something you said in the summary made me think of is the Miranda class starship like a workhorse of the like of Starfleet? Is that why we see so much of it? And did you notice that the bridge had looked more like a Romulan bridge? And I wonder if this was, I haven't bothered to look it up. I'm sure there's information about this somewhere. But I wonder if the bridge was a Romulan bridge redressed to look like the Britain's bridge. So that was one question I had for that part.
Okay, so there's two parts to that question, isn't there?
Yeah,
Um,
that's two questions that I had
okay.
for that one
First part,
subject.
I do think it's like a generic kind of science vessel, but it's also kind of battle ready. So it's like I would assume that the Miranda class is kind of like a lower grade galaxy class. It's not all flash and doesn't have the best technology and it doesn't have wooden lining and stuff. It's not the Rolls Royce in it,
It's
but
that
it's
wood.
just
It's that wood lining that that makes
it's
all the difference. It's
it
true.
makes a ship pristine, doesn't it?
I would never
Um,
serve aboard a ship that doesn't have wooden lining on its control panels.
God, you want me to captain that? Um, yeah, no, but I do think, yeah, as you
Number
say,
one, you
it's
beam aboard the Britain. It's the bridge is too small for me.
I'll beam on once they take away the dust. Um,
Sorry. Go on, go on.
yeah, no, I do think it is a how do you put it, like a workhorse
Yeah, like a
vessel?
workhorse. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
do think so. It's one of those
I
run of the mill kind of mass produced ships that they have going around because I'm assuming you can kind of equip any kind of scientific uh bits and boodabs on it and what have
yeah,
you, and,
they're
and
like
have it go out and
most of the Starfleet ships are not super specific. I get the impression that they're modular. Like if you put a different this thing on that part, it does something different on a battle cruiser than it does on a science vessel. So it's like, and I noticed that
yeah.
the photon torpedo tube had an extension on this one, and maybe those were like extra sensors or something like that.
It probably is a proven class of ship too, because it does look like
A
it's getting
tough.
old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it probably is like a worn out, battered old thing, but they know it's one of those models that'll just keep on working.
It's like the
Um,
Honda Civic of starships.
okay, okay, we'll go with that. Which brings us on to the second point. Yes, the bridge. I don't know if it was a Romulan bridge like it was another set that they had reused, obviously. But I did notice that the console kind of seemed out of place because you had, like, a TNG really flash looking console set up in this hold. old looking bridge. But then it would make sense. You have this old kind of shell, but then you keep
Yeah, it's
updating the
true.
technology inside it. And that helped me make more sense of some of the ships that we're seeing in Discovery, where you kind of think sometimes that doesn't fit or that seems too advanced or what have you. Well, I mean, the USS Enterprise doesn't seem like it comes from the same time period as the USS, what is it, Britain here,
Yeah.
at
Oh no.
all.
Actually, that's a really good. That's great. I never really thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Like, why wouldn't there be experimental models and like, why, if you wanted, yeah, yeah. Hey,
It's just
Star Trek.
because
This,
we never get the bigger picture. We don't get someone that comes in and spends 40 minutes explaining what ships are out doing what and why they look different, what have you.
right.
We've
It's
never
true.
had that kind of. We never go to like shipyards, fleet yards, and see what's going on and
There's not like a
see.
show yet that's based at like Utopia Planitia or something like
Yeah,
that, but who knows? The next season of Star Trek Discovery is going to surprise all fans by being taking place on Utopia Planitia the whole season. Can
yeah.
you
You follow a new
imagine?
character that just welds all day.
I would be so
What
impressed
will
if
happen next?
that. Hey, I heard a story that the Klingon War is over.
Just
It was
unaware of
on the,
everything.
yes, it was on the Central News Network this morning, and then he just goes around goes back to welding.
My God.
At the end of 7 seasons, we finally find out that the ship that they built was the Excelsior or something like that. It'd be pretty funny. And speaking of tangents,
Oh.
so going back to my questions for you, that was a good answer. I go with that, and I do have to say that like I do like they could have probably used the set of like whatever they used for yesterday's Enterprise because that was like an older looking bridge from like the TOS movie
Mm.
era, and they could have just used that. But I kind of like that they made it different because the science vessel might be dramatically different from a cruiser or an exploration vessel. So
And the set that they
um
used seemed to make sense with the ship itself because it looks like a bulky, kind of sturdy old thing. And then you look at the bridge; it was really like compact.
mhm.
Um, Everything was square. It wasn't streamlined or ergonomic or anything. It wasn't at all Kelvin timeline. It was more just boxy.
Right.
Um,
I thought that I was like kind of hyper aware of the character that was in like dream coma or what, not dream coma, but like dream catatonic or whatever, where
mm,
the Beta Z character from the Britain. I thought it was interesting
mm,
that his role was science advisor, so he wasn't the counselor, which I know not all Beta Zs necessarily
okay.
need to be counselor, but at least, well, he was in an advisory role of some kind, so that's interesting. But um, I like the actor because I felt bad for the actor because all he all he can do is like lay in this bed, and then the rest of his lines are voiceover, right? But I did like in
Mm,
the first scene that we see him, you actually see a tear rolling down his eyes, like, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I have to say kudos to the actor. But overall, the whole thing didn't work for me. Like I really kind of like was cringing at like the whole idea of Deanna having to search through this nightmare and like the way that the communication between the aliens and she were, it didn't really progress. Like every dream sequence was the same, like her just going, "Where are you?" And then they're going, "The moon with the eyes in the dark, circles," and it's like
mm.
I wish that each time we went in there, it was something a little bit different, a little bit more information. I don't know what I would have written for it, but I certainly didn't like. I didn't vibe with it at all.
D-
What
Did
did you think of that whole part?
did you feel like the actor, by the way, that lies on the bed and does nothing more is called John Vickery, and so he's got the same last name as me, so I mean, thumbs up for that. Um,
I just found out your last name. I always just thought it was on the tube.
on the tube, there you go. I mean,
Sean on the tube.
who would
Wow.
have known? So thumbs up for having a good last name there.
Hey,
Um,
do you think are there a lot of Vicaries, or
oh
could you
God,
guys
yes,
be related? Oh, okay, it's like a
yes,
common.
yeah, yeah, completely common name, but anyway, um,
But if you were to find out he's related to you, that would be like
that would be
it's
funny. It would
quite
be a funny. It would be a funny
a
link. It would be like an
link.
Easter egg I'd have to include in a future video one day. Hey, he's related to me, right? Um,
You'd have to be in Star Trek because it's like Ewan McGregor's uncle was Wedge Antilles in Star Wars. So if he ends up being your uncle, you're gonna be like, Star Trek, I need to be on an episode of Discovery because it's like
I,
family legacy now at this point.
I'm not sure that the character like had that much impact on the franchise itself. To be honest, um,
Fair enough.
no
Fair enough.
disrespect to the actor, like the character itself didn't seem to. So that's essentially my question. Like, could the story have done so without the dream sequences? Maybe not. They could have been done better. But could the episode have done without him?
Yeah, because I mean, she could have still had the
Ultimately, he's kind of
nightmares. I
useless.
mean, right.
I mean, yeah, it's good that they find him and save him. They save the guy. That's
Right.
cool.
It's
So I'm,
also kind of interesting. Like, it's not really clear how he's the only survivor. It looks like everyone else just went nuts on the
I
ship, and like
assume
that.
he's the only one that still had his REM sleep.
Oh yeah, you're right. But like, how could you
So
sleep through the night? Like, from what I understand, like these people went like completely nuts. Like it was like this was kind of like what I imagined based on that little video log clip that the that we get from the captain of the Britain. I gather it was not too different from that movie Event Horizon. Have you ever seen that movie?
no, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's Jason Isaacs, one of his early roles,
Ooh.
or at least when I first started noticing him, is in that film, and it's that's why it was like people, a lot of people were making jokes about when Jason Isaacs was cast as the part of Lorca. They were like, "Oh, are you gonna end up being like the big bad guy, just like you were in that last science fiction movie you did called Event
Mhm.
Horizon?" But anyways, Event Horizon is about a similar kind of phenomenon going happening on a ship where everyone seems possessed and starts to try to kill each other, and it's much more gory than TNG would ever have endeavored to do. But you get a hint of that from the
Well,
dialogue and from that log.
um, this episode had some actually pretty graphic deaths when it opened. Like it opens with some pretty horrific bodies there.
Oh yeah,
When they
that's
first
right.
beam over to the Britain, the first guy is stabbed and there's blood everywhere. The second guy got hit by a phaser. He's all like melted and stuff.
Hmm.
Which surprised me because a lot of the times we don't see blood in TNG, and
Yeah, I kind of I
this one
was
they didn't
surprised about that
shy
too. It's true.
from showing all of that. I mean, the second, I think maybe the third, fourth, it's just like minor lacerations, which is fine. It's just like scars. But the first two, they hit you with that shock factor.
No, totally. And then they describe it like Dr. Crutch says they use phasers, knives, and their bare hands to kill each other. So
Mm.
it's kind of a netto thing. I would imagine someone would have killed the Betazoid science advisor, and so I do find it a little inconceivable that he lived, and he ultimately doesn't really prove to move the plot along. So yeah, I. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he was hiding in like a cupboard or something. He
Uh, well, it was on the bridge. It was like a little. You're right. It was like a cupboard on the bridge. That's right. That's,
but
that's true. That's
yeah,
true.
no, I mean, it's just, where you put your coffee cups or something, your mugs or something. But yeah, your good
Serving
old,
on
Starfleet
smaller.
insignia mugs.
We're so spoiled serving on the Enterprise D that now the Discovery has a very massive bridge, so that's odd too, because you would think it's this as a science vessel might have echoed this configuration. but I like the Discovery
I
Bridge
don't quite
ultimately.
understand the point of a huge bridge. I understand the practical point of it, like from a filming point of view, because you need room to film stuff. So
And you get these
I mean,
beautiful wide shots. Yeah, it's
yeah,
true.
I think that's why they made everything so big in Discovery. The transporter room is big, the hallways are big. It's just easier to get your camera around and your actors. Um, but the Discovery Bridge is just massive. What's the point of that?
I know it's like a bridge
Why?
contest. Like after TNG must have started this whole like
Oh, it started the
um
trend of making the
the
bridges.
the bridge is big, but Voyager didn't follow that. I think Voyager's bridge, as I recall, was like a nice size. Like it didn't feel massive. It kind of matched the scale of the ship, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Voyage's cozy.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, this one isn't. The Britain isn't. The Britain is hideous, and I would absolutely not want to be on that bridge. It looked cramped. Um,
um
there were
yeah,
beautiful shots though, of both the Enterprise and the Britain, in space.
mhm.
So I mean, fine. Deanna Troy floating wasn't that good, but at least the ships were nice.
The ships were nice. Although and that's, again, minor complaint, but it was they showed that one shot of the Britain just kind of hovering below the saucer area of the Enterprise D,
Hmm.
below and in front of it, like a little too much. It was like pretty much after every commercial break they went to that shot first and then came back. So it was like an interest, like a strange thing, and I was like, oh, I think I've seen that shot too much. Ensign Peoples really stood out to to me. So when Geordi is still aboard the Britannia trying to get the engine started and doing the diagnostics, there's this kind of like um somewhat like mysterious or creepy ensign who's like starts getting he's like the first one we see starting to get like paranoid, and I was like, oh, I need to submit him to Gay Trek, which is which is like what on Instagram. You don't know about this. It's like
I do not.
cute ensign, and I you heterosexuals, you have a lot of beautiful people to stare at on Star Trek, but us homosexuals, we hardly ever get a very handsome looking chap.
I mean, you get to
Unless
look at Will Riker every day.
that's
Come
true, we
on.
do. Yeah, yeah. But like guest stars, like there's always a new uh love interest woman, and in this situation, it's like, oh, a fresh face, someone new. That was interesting.
Mm.
But he wasn't the only one. We also got uh, he was the only one I thought was cute, but we also
It
got
is true that
cute.
we often get like the traditional old man ambassador with like a young woman attaché, right? Or something.
Right, right. We never see like an
Okay.
old woman ambassador with a young man
Well, I mean, I think
attaché.
you can't complain because you get the good old Harry Mudd, and I no, sorry.
No, very good, very good. But that joke or gag meant for me to lead into the fact that I think it was neat that we saw a lot more crew people in this episode, because we
Yeah,
got him, which is Ensign Peoples, then we got Lieutenant Gillespie, who was causing all the trouble in 10 Forward, and he was
I
just like
like him.
super paranoid. You're like, I'm like, he's
I
super
like him.
paranoid, and you're like, I like him.
No, I like him. I didn't. Okay, fine. His arc, like in this story, has him as like like a douche, but that's because he's all
Right,
sleep deprived, right?
right. This is bringing out the
But
worst in people, which is kind of an interesting thing too.
it would have been interesting to see, like to have these kind of, uh, I suppose, regulars. It would have been interesting to have these guys kind of like show them now and then, and kind of focus on the same people in the crew, especially in the main crew, because you always get different people in engineering, and I suppose it doesn't make that much sense. But
No, it's true.
I liked him.
Yeah, I liked him too, and I liked we never see these people again. And there's also the lieutenant
No.
who's on the bridge who can't remember her navigation
Oh
um
yeah, she gets
skills.
dismissed real quick. Go
Yeah,
to sick bay.
he's Ensign Rager. That's right. He's like, Ensign Lynn, please replace Ensign Rager. It's like kind of an interesting thing. Like, um, so that was like a real positive for me about this episode, was seeing a lot more characters and extras kind of introduced, and even though this doesn't go anywhere, it did make me kind of appreciate how Star Trek Discovery does that, because so far, like, we see one thing that I really like that Discovery did with the bridge crew is that we saw them all season, and it was a point of frustration. I was like, why aren't we getting to know the bridge crew? And then all of a sudden, when it does happen and they come together, it was impactful. And it would have been neat if Star Trek: The Next Generation could have done something like that with some of these characters as well. Like in an, like maybe at the end of the season, somehow they're all useful again. But of course,
Well,
the two
I would
different
have
styles of
loved.
television.
Yeah, that's the thing. I would have loved it as well, but I think it boils down to the times where nowadays television series don't shy from like uniting huge casts, even if they're not major characters or like constantly present. Shows like, and I always revert to Game of Thrones because I think everyone's kind of seen that at this point. Game of Thrones will just throw characters out there and you'll see them now and then and they'll come back and they exist, they're there and they're always doing something. And if the story applies to them at that moment, they'll bring them back and they won't hesitate. Whereas I think television back in the day just didn't do that. It didn't work that way.
Right, it's true. A little humorous question here. We see both Riker and Troy's sleeping garments, like what they sleep in. And I wonder if you had noticed or had any thoughts on how uncomfortable those outfits for sleeping look. Troi had a thing where it was like an evening gown, like it went around her neck, and then Riker's blue ribbed weird suit, kind of like, I don't know what was going on over there.
Yeah, just like. Yeah, I mean, sleeping in your underpants and then getting up with an awkward boner probably doesn't exist in the future, does it? But
these wonderfully tight garments come with arousal control systems.
I don't know. I never pay attention to what they wear in their sleep. I did notice the Troi thing because I thought that was a bit weird. I didn't notice Riker's. I noticed the beds. The beds look very uncomfortable. And
I noticed in the HD upgrade that Troy's outfit was also very risque for the time because it's sheer. It's completely sheer. I don't know if you saw that. Like,
Marina Sirtis was a pretty risque actor.
Well, if you got it, flaunt it, and she certainly has it. But but yes, I agree.
Because everything that wasn't Star Trek related, I mean, she's done nude, hasn't she? She's done full nudity.
I don't know. I never followed her outside of Star Trek except for Sherlock, the Sherlock episode, Sherlock Holmes episode that she was in from the 1980s Granada series.
Okay.
But now I have to do a Google search later and see what comes up.
So that's what bugged you, kind of like what they were wearing when they went to bed.
Well, I just thought it stood out this time. Like I think Picard's out always, actually, because Picard also wears an awkward outfit, and
yeah, we
like that.
We often see Picard go to bed or get out of bed, and he always wears something that is a bit odd.
That is a bit odd, and I don't think people. That's the thing is, like, now I don't remember. And of course I didn't get that far, but I remember DS9 having anything too out of the ordinary. I mean, some of Jake's outfits were really bizarre and like kind of like, oh my gosh, like I hope people in the future don't dress like this. But so far Discovery is the most, what I think, and maybe it's just because I can't see like I can't imagine fashion changing so dramatically, because it's over the course of human history, like the basics have always kind of remained pretty much the same, like a pant, a shirt, things like that. And like the way humans tend to wear them, it's a lot, like we've had clothing long enough now to know that like there's a certain way to wear it, and then
we know how to make it and what to make. I always assume that in TNG, like in DS9, when a human character is wearing something that makes absolutely no sense to me or just seems hideous, I always go with that. That's like fashion from another planet.
I like that.
Some other species has hideous taste, and for whatever reason, our character is wearing their clothes.
Riker was wearing an Dorian sleeping suit tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fine. It's fine. Humans are normal. It's the Andorians that are wrong. right?
I
I
got it.
mean,
I got it. Thanks for helping me to build a framework to rationalize next generation outfits. That was
well,
that I need. I
it's just constructive racism, isn't it? But
well, I don't know, but it could. I mean, but at the very least, now I feel it. Future fashions. um, another scene that I thought was done really well was the moment where uh they're they're going through the cycle of showing everyone doing weird things on the ship, and they
mm,
get to Chief O'Brien and Keiko, and she she walks in, and I have to give kudos, big time kudos to Rosalind Chow, because she like delivered some crazy techno explanation, which was very specific too, is like botany or
mm,
biology or whatever, and she said it so naturally, like it came out of her
yeah,
like if she's like very familiar with those terms, and it didn't seem like she practiced it for hours, which I'm sure she did.
mm.
um but anyways, you get that argument with between Keiko and O'Brien, and then O'Brien goes to 10 forward, and we never kind of like. I wonder like if Keiko was just like that's like, I mean, he was acting really strange for how Chief usually acts with Keiko, you know. So I'm surprised that she never like came to follow up on that, and so I thought that was like another, a highlight and then a drop ball as far as the story was concerned, because if I get it, you only have a limited time, so they had to focus on so many characters. But I wonder if they were a little too ambitious and dropped the ball with that one. What do you think?
I didn't get that kind of feeling. I just got that it was just one of those, oh, this guy's acting odd, moving on, kind of, because they just wanted to show you that various characters were acting oddly. I didn't feel like we needed to follow up on that story because I mean, who gives? I mean, who cares?
Right, and yeah, I guess that's
Obviously nothing's happening. Keiko's not, flirting with someone else. She doesn't care. Um, I mean, it's just nice to see her now and then. Yeah, no, it didn't feel like a drop ball for me. It was it was fine. Um it's just that, yeah, they were trying to cram a lot and a lot of stories in, but that's to kind of give you the, like, it's kind of to, I suppose, to overwhelm you with how many characters are going nuts and what's going on with the ship. I would have liked maybe to spend more time on how crazy the ship went. Maybe, take away from all of the Deanna floating scenes and discussions with random Vickery, and and spend more time on people like getting mad at each other and what have you. Not necessarily fight scenes, but just
yeah, I think so too.
how the ship
Even though
degenerates, kind of.
Right. Even though we've seen that, like, like I think this is like now the third instance. The poor crew of the Enterprise constantly gets like bombarded with these like mind problems. Because like, the Naked Now was an example where they're all losing their shit, and then I forget what the other one was, and now this one.
The funny thing is, you say the poor crew of the Enterprise, but don't look at it that way because they always come out alive for the most
That's
part.
that's
Because
true. What
every
about
ship
like
they run into, all of them go through the same stuff. They're all dead. The ship's adrift. No one's alive. It's all terrible. I
no,
mean,
it's true
these
that
guys make it out because, I mean, solely because of Data in this episode. Had it
that's
not
true.
been for
Data
Data,
is
they
the
would have all been too tired to
yeah.
do anything.
Yeah, I
And then
like
I
Data.
suppose
I like Data a lot in this episode.
Deanna Troy helps, I suppose, but proof being that Deanna Troy wouldn't have been able to figure it out alone is the other Betazoid didn't.
Right. And it was the combination of Data and Deanna in that one. That's where it kind of all comes together, because she's having these visions, and then Data's like, we have to figure out a way to send information to the other ship through the void. So he's going through the molecular structures, and that's when they figure out like the people are asking for hydrogen. And I thought that was rather clever too. It was like the moon with
Yeah,
the
that
two,
was
the circle and the whatever. And because
okay. So is
I
it
even
just me,
what's that?
or is it just me, or am I being completely paranoid here? But I felt like Data was judging everyone in this
I
episode.
know. I totally know.
I mean,
You totally like, like you totally like that scene where like Picard can't figure out what to say, and he's just like Data's like waiting patiently, and he's just like, okay, I'm just gonna do it, you know.
He finishes Deanna Troy's or what is it, Dr. Crusher's explanation, I think, at one point.
Explanation, right? No.
I'm just like fed up with this. Come on, people, get a hold of yourselves. We gotta get out of here.
Of course, we know Data doesn't feel anything, but I couldn't help but
No, I
be
can't
like,
help but feel that sometimes Data gets bored with certain situations. Like, he must find these situations very interesting. Like, there's a lot of data to analyze and what have you. But once
ha ha ha.
once he's figured out what's going on, where he is, and what's happened for 10 days, and everyone's just tired, he must be so bored. Like, okay, we need to get out of here and be off to do something. Because even interacting with people that are tired, like that are 10 days tired, must not be very interesting. So he can't even feed off the interactions that he has. So he must be just, oh, let's get out of here. Anyway, I really did feel like he was judging everyone.
No, he definitely. Brent Spiner, if you happen to be watching this this segment and hear what we're talking about here, we'd love to know your insights. If you can remember if Data was bored or judging everyone in this episode, which is Night Terrors. I bet if you do a Google search, he's probably answered this question. I can't imagine the amount of questions Brent Spiner and the crew have answered over the years.
I do wonder if there's like a compilation of everything that he's answered about every single episode over the years.
That stuff is coming, and it's going to be AI and computers that do it. Like, we're not, humans have to sit and spend so many hours to watch and sift through all this, but like with an AI, you can feed an audio file and it just like instantly can transcribe the whole shebang. So it's coming. We're going to be able to do it. There's an interesting show that's set in the distant, I can't remember, future called Altered Carbon. And if you have a chance, check it out.
Okay. I get a lot of ads about that currently.
Yeah, it's a really neat show. We're not gonna spend too much time on Starfleet Boy talking about it, but if you start watching it and you like it, shoot me a DM and let me know. A DM. DM me, bro. So yeah, the Data thing was a highlight. I'm really mixed about this episode because there were so many good things, but there were like, I feel like an equal number of like missed opportunities as well.
It's one of those episodes where like there's an interesting concept behind it, but then they awkwardly execute it. Okay, so one thing really surprised me. Picard is explaining that they're preparing to tow the USS Britannia and get out of here, but he says it's going to be ready in an hour.
Right.
It takes you an hour to send it, like to hook up a tractor beam on that thing and then get out of there. Why does it take an hour?
And then it took 6 hours to do the energy blast from the deflector. Right? Like, it's true.
Is that because they're running low on power or something?
I think that had to do with it, because he does. You're right. The Data mentioned something about how long it takes to charge, that kind of thing.
It shocked me. I was like, God damn, an hour. Anyway,
I did. It's true. I did like the. I think this is the first time we've seen it before. It was in the episode where Georgie gets kidnapped by the Pakleds. So I take it back, but for a second I almost thought that it's the first time we saw the Bizarre Ram scoops, or the Bizarre collectors releasing hydrogen, because that's what they do. They collect hydrogen, and that's their primary job. So that was kind of a cool moment, little techie moment there. I think I went through the only other thing in my notes here is the Worf blade ceremony suicide scene.
Oh, that was okay, really okay. That's the only note that I have left as well.
Wow, okay. We're both on the same tip here. That's funny.
The thing is, I always find it funny how, like, when shit hits the fan, Worf just reverts back to his ultra traditional Klingon ceremonious suicide.
It is really strange. I mean, yeah, it's true.
He always comes back to that, like, I must die with honor because I fear things, and come on,
but then
get a grip. Come on.
Of course, Counselor Troy senses his distress, and I think we get the first hints of a future relationship with these two because they hold hands in that little scene, and I was like, oh, are they planting the seed for that, right now?
I
Is
don't
that what's
I don't
happening
think
here?
would you think so? I don't think so. It's too
They
far in
might.
advance, isn't it?
I give this I find in water connective tissue throughout the series. Maybe not intentional, but it ends up happening that way because
Hmm.
we know the whole series as a whole. So like maybe you're right. There may not have been an intention to like they didn't know they were going to put Troy and Worf together. But maybe they when they wrote this scene, they wondered if that could be a possibility at some point, themselves, like we are wondering as well. So I don't
So
know.
just have two characters hold hands and then see how the internet reacts.
Or
Um,
back then, it wasn't even the internet. See how much mail you get. Like, it's like, I will not tolerate interspecies relationships. All the same trolls that are around now on the internet were around
oh dear God.
back then as well. Um, why are you watching Star Trek if you don't tolerate those things? Get out of here.
Get out of there. Come
I
on.
said it. Get off my bridge.
I feel threatened now.
um,
Do I have to leave? What's going on?
you're
Oh,
fine.
good, good.
You're just a curmudgeon. It's a little different. I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Guinan's rifle. What the heck? Who
Okay,
was
yeah,
that?
it's funny, but it is a classic trope.
It is.
I
It's
think like the barman pulls out a weapon, like ooh, but then like the barman pulls out like a disproportionately huge, like kind of insane, funky looking weapon, um, like a massive shotgun or something, like not just a baseball bat.
It's
Like
so
it's a
funny.
classic joke, isn't it?
She was there was a different side to Guinan, and I haven't seen her lose her patience often, but she was really losing her patience with Gillespie, and I thought it was weird how it's like it
She
was
hasn't slept in
off-putting
10
how.
days either.
Yeah, I know. So she's going through some crazy stuff too. I thought it was neat how each different character. Poor Picard was the most, I think, frail from the experience. I just felt bad, like that scene in the turbo lift and like all that stuff. And he
Well,
talks about.
that scene in the turbo lift. So before he goes crazy and has the hallucination, but after Riker leaves, you get that kind of moment where he's just
He's
there
shaking.
and
Yeah.
yeah. That is like a prelude to the performance that he gives in Logan.
Yeah, you're absolutely.
Because it does look a lot like the Professor X that we see in Logan. That whole shaky thing and the way they had his makeup done, like looking all
It's
old
true.
and
Pat,
mm,
and you feel for Captain Picard. Patrick Stewart
yeah,
plays like distraught, disabled old man really well.
he
It's
does. He does.
it's
I was genuinely worried after Logan. I was like, oh my
like
God, like what's going on? Is
I
he
know.
fine? You go check out interviews. No, he's fine. Okay.
No, and it doesn't help that he lost his voice for a little while. So there's a bunch of
Yeah,
interviews
I
where
mean,
his voice sounds really frail. So yeah, hey, here's another shout out on Starfleet Way to you, Patrick Stewart. We love you, and we
so
we
Patrick.
we want to see you on the Enterprise one more time in a Star Trek film. Please make it happen. That's one of our missions here on Starfleet Boy, by the way, is that the next generation gets a final like a proper send off, and at this
Absolutely.
point I'm willing for it to be anything. I think a Quentin Tarantino style film would have been an amazing next generation film, but I would also like to see. I was thinking of what directors I would like to see kind of direct and say goodbye to TNG on screen. And I thought Kenneth Branagh would be really good. And Martin Scorsese might be a really great. Could you imagine a Martin Scorsese science fiction Star Trek film? And then of course
No,
Steven
I can't
Spielberg
imagine
would.
what that would be like. But
And then of course Steven Spielberg. Like I can't
no,
imagine that
no.
Steven Spielberg would not want to direct a Star Trek
I
movie.
don't want Spielberg to touch Star Trek. I would be interested in seeing like a Neil Blomkamp.
Mm.
take on Star Trek. I know he's very dystopian and dark and
Yeah,
um
actually that would be a really neat, like, what if he sets the stage for what happens after in the next generation? Like, it could be
I could see Neil
dystopian and stuff like
Blomkamp
that.
dealing with like a very Borg related, a Borg heavy story.
Hmm.
Um,
That's a really good choice. Anyways, just some thoughts out there if we're gonna shop for A-list directors.
yeah.
I That's all my notes. What else do you got? You got anything else?
No, that was it. That was my last notes was Worf reverts into ultra traditional. That's what I got there.
Oh, I did miss something. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? I wrote that down. Because Riker has that hallucination of snakes in his bed, and that's like the
Oh,
most night. And that was also eerie, and like I couldn't deal with it. It did remind me of something interesting about
that's
the
just the most
bathroom.
generic thing in that snakes and spiders, right? Like even in Harry Potter when they have that scene where they're like confronting their worst fears or something. Um,
And it's always snakes or
it's
spiders. You're right.
snakes and
It's
spiders and
overused. It's
it's
totally
just those
overused.
generic fears that people well then I mean a lot of people are afraid of snakes and spiders, but then I mean those are the
I
irrational fears. I mean, I suppose like you're not gonna put a tiger, everyone's scared of a tiger. It's a rational fear. Or like a serial killer with a chainsaw. But
That would have been interesting if like we started seeing things like horror movie classics on board the Enterprise, like Jason or Freddy Krueger.
to make things
Um,
really deep, you could have people have like fear of like immigrants or homosexuality and make it really, really meta. But I
that would have been controversial. Just to even think about that would have been controversial when
I'm not
TNG
sure
came
any
out.
show was
Like,
like gonna go in that direction, but
no, I know. It is amazing how far we've come, and it's amazing like that those like the groups that you just mentioned right there continue to be controversial. And I'm over the like I think that the one that makes neither of them make sense to me, but I think the most absurd one is the immigration one, because what are you gonna do when there's 20 billion people on planet Earth? Like,
I
like we're
mean,
we're totally
what are you
headed
gonna
in
do?
that way. Yeah, what are you
But I
gonna
mean,
do? And I'm not a
wouldn't work.
conspiracy
The
theorist,
scene wouldn't have
so.
worked. You can't put an immigrant in like the bottom of your bed. You have to put snakes. So
And on that note,
oh my god.
it's time for our episode ratings section. Sean,
Oh,
since you're an immigrant to Canada, I'm allowing for this kind of humor because you're speaking. But if you come to the United States, we're gonna kick your. No, I'm just kidding. We're not.
oh my god. No, I'm a citizen of the world, so
That is what I want to be too. I think it's time for citizenry of the world. And as scary as it sounds to most people, having been a Star Trek fan for many years, I think a world government would actually work
yes.
uh, really well. It's
So
not
are
that
we voting
scary.
for Elon Musk here or
Well, I don't know. I thought we have to speak about contemporary things on Starfleet Way too, but I think it's pretty cool that there's a Tesla, his Tesla specifically, on its way to Mars. Uh,
okay, so quick side note before this episode ends, I think we can still cram this in a bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
As different as an alien life form would be, so like our imagination couldn't even begin to fathom what like an alien life form would look like, and thus their transportation would be completely different. I'm pretty certain, or fairly certain, they would understand a rocket or a spaceship in the sense that it has like a main engine, and it's like it's shaped to go up and out. I'm pretty sure anyone would be quite confused by seeing a Tesla floating around somewhere because it's got wheels, right? But
That would
it's
be, I know. It'd be pretty weird. Now you're a Voyager fan. I saw a lot of memes on Twitter showing that apparently they found a truck in the Delta Quadrant in an episode
yeah.
of Voyager, and so people are swapping the truck and putting the Tesla.
Mm.
And there's a funny one I saw where it's in the cargo bay or something, and they're examining the Tesla, and it's like,
I even
but
saw
yeah,
one like the Tesla's on the view screen of the Enterprise. Like
that's
so Riker's looking at the Tesla, thinking, "What the hell is this?" But
but it's true. You're right. That will be very confusing to an alien. But what about like the you're bringing it back to this episode, the alien craft that came out of the explosion, like what the heck was it? Like it didn't
I didn't
like
even get a clear look
to
at it,
like
to be honest. It goes through very fast, and it's bright and blue, and yeah.
it looked like a bunch of crystals together or something. That's the impression that I got. So who knows? Like, I mean, if we saw that, we might think it's just an asteroid or a meteoroid or like a, whatever. Um,
Mm.
so who knows? Who knows what crazy things you can do? And certainly, you know, it all depends on so many different factors. Um, we end with the ship heading to Starbase 220. So now I'm tracking starbases.
Yeah,
It
I
gives me an
also
idea.
did. 220 is nothing.
But now it's interesting because you can kind of tell around where the Enterprise is in space, because if the nearest base is Starbase 220, we should be able to track. I wonder if anyone's ever done like from the beginning of TNG to the end of TNG, the entire route the Enterprise D took
Oh, it
in
probably makes
its
no sense whatsoever.
mission. Yeah, I'm sure it makes sense. It's probably like a bunch of circles and loops and things
This
like
goes
that.
from
But
like that side of the galaxy to that side, no reason at all. But and
yeah,
then
it's
there's that
true.
one
But that
episode where they sent to like the Delta Quadrant or something, because of Q.
That's true. That's true. Well, those would be taken out. But you did the summary, so I'll go first with my rating.
Okay.
I'm gonna give this episode a 6, and
Wow.
yeah, and it's the
How
saving
amazing.
grace is definitely like the data, all the data scenes, and there were enough delightful things to kind of like move it on the positive side from the middle.
Mm.
But it's still almost just a middle grade like average episode. So yeah.
You know, I say wow because I'm gonna give it a 6 as well. That's what I was
Oh,
going
right
for.
on. A
Um,
6.
yeah, no, I like the general feel of the episode. The ambiance is like it's genuinely scary. Well, I mean, scary. It's not scary. It has you worried, and really curious and intrigued at what's going on, and why all this is happening. But just the dreams and and the guest lying on the bed. Yeah, that was too much. It's too much for me.
It was definitely too much. One other note that I forgot to go over. One thing that I did notice about this episode, which I hardly ever notice in TNG, and I think that's a testament to the artist. But here, I think it was intentional that you're supposed to notice it. But over time, they all started to get dark circles under their eyes, and I thought that was excellent. Like 10 days, bad sleeping, no dreams, and they're all tired. It was
Hmm.
like really, really well done.
Oh, the makeup is good.
Yeah, it usually always is on TNG. There's a few exceptions here and there, but well, that was fun. That was a good. I think we had more fun talking about the episode than watching it, but I would say that like that's a positive on in any case.
Um, I don't know. I kind of felt like in my mind, season 4 of TNG has always been quite strong, and recently we have had some, I suppose, just not that strong episodes, and so I'm just
what would
wondering if the season overall will actually be as strong as what I thought.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Well, season 4 actually starts out really strong, and I think that like that's the thing that I like about shorter seasons on um on Star Trek or just in shows in general, is that I think that like the way the system worked, at least in the United States, was like an episode had to have somewhere around 20 to 25 episodes per season. And that was
Mm.
like a full season. And now on average, the seasons of a TV show are 10 episodes, give or
A
take.
lot
Like
of
I'm
mostly 13.
or
I think they've
13.
cut they've cut down from like a traditional 26 it was to now like a half that, which is 13. And so some do 10, and then like we get the odd 15 or 16,
Right.
like the AMC format.
And yeah, and I don't mind that because I feel like, you know, this is one of those stories, this episode, for example, that like had it never gotten made, like we wouldn't be missing much. Like it doesn't really like, there's not a lot of new information. Like even the bizarre collectors being ejected was something that we already knew or saw before, and so on and so forth. So I think that like the new model works a lot better because the writers have more time to write. Really, the idea is that hopefully you get fewer episodes to produce, but you get the same amount of time as you did for 26 episodes. So you're going to write a lot more quality episodes in that same amount of time. So I think that overall I would have to agree with that, because for all the crap I give to Star Trek Discovery, like from a production standpoint, and even like the way the show is constructed and everything like that, in many ways I have to concede that it is superior to the format that I'm used to, which is a more episodic format. That being said, there are gems in every episode. So even the filler episodes, and that's usually it's a credit to the actors or the performers. You'll get like something subtle and delightful from that. So there's pros and cons on both arguments, I think.
The modern format is objectively superior to the older format. Will the modern shows be better or withstand the test of time? Only time will tell. But yes, it has this kind of triage effect to it, where a lot of the episodes that came out mostly because I think they needed to come up with an episode that week, that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. All right, man.
All right,
Until next
dude.
time. Live long and prosper. And
Of course.
audience, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for listening to us all the way to the end. We really appreciate it. We'd love to, yes, we'd love to hear from you, and we have been hearing from you, and we really enjoy your comments. So please feel free to add your thoughts to what we were talking about and about this episode in the comment section below. Please like this video if you liked it, and share it. And also please hit the subscribe button if you're watching this and you're not a subscriber and you made it all the way. You made it this far. You may as well hit that subscribe button. All right. And now we can sign off. So thank you very much, sir.